It is real money we're talking about. Stimulus spending and federal bailouts have contributed to the current $1.6 trillion in red ink. California Republican Ed Royce, a bailout critic, he says today's debt is tomorrow's misery. His quote, "This massive shift toward a government-run economy has resulted in trillion-dollar deficits in the near and long term. This is a significant burden we are placing on the American taxpayers." Congressman Royce joins us now. Is it true, sir, that these projections don't even include the costs of, for instance, cap and trade legislation, wherever that ends up, and also reforming health care?
That is true, John. And if we recall, Ben Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, indicated to me when I asked him about this earlier in the year, he said certainly trillion-dollar deficits going forward, as far as the eye could see, would be unsustainable. And that's exactly where we are right now, as you say, without including health insurance reform or the cap and trade legislation. And I think the reason the Fed chairman and so many of us are nervous about this is that as we've seen a tripling of the deficits now with this spending, as we've seen 33% increases in some of these appropriations bills in 1 year, we realize that this money has to be borrowed from somebody, and the interest presumably has to be paid. At this point, you've just had the Office of Management and Budget increase their estimate from $7 trillion to $9 trillion over the next 10 years, certainly a greater number for the next 10 years than all the budget deficits that preceded it in the history of this republic. Well,
you know, you've heard the argument that when you're a federal government, deficits don't matter. You just print more money.
And, you know, as an enthusiast for free market economics and as one who believes that the private sector is where real jobs are created and that shrinking this private sector and ever expanding the government sector, I believe these deficits certainly are going to matter, especially when they reach the unsustainable level that we've now reached, where this is $1.6 trillion this year. It'll probably be that number next year. And these are projected going forward. And again, we have not only federalized, you know, and taken an ownership interest in so many financial institutions, automobile companies. Now we're looking at doing this with 16% of our economy with health care. We're looking at doing it with the energy markets, with cap and trade. We're down a road here where we're ratcheting to the left the size and scope of government involvement, and we're not coming out of this recession right now as a result, in my opinion. You're watching Europe, you're watching Asia begin to recover. Germany, which declined to go into this type of stimulus spending. France, they're up, you know, 0.3%. You're watching us continue to falter under this debt burden. I think these are the wrong policies, and I think we're headed very quickly in a direction where we're accumulating debt where it's going to have a catastrophic effect on interest rates long term.
Congressman Ed Royce of California, a member of the House Financial Services Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Angry voters turning up at these